Welcome to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano. Let's get you to the pulse on everything you need to know. And this is a Pulse Web exclusive, and we are here at the beautiful Factory Bar and Restaurant located at 451 Communipaw Avenue in Jersey City, New Jersey. And we don't have Daria here, we don't have Krista here, we don't have Ashley Rollo here. We're actually here for this year's Republican Lincoln Dinner, brought to you by the Hispanic Republicans of North Jersey. And if you remember, we were actually in, I believe, Lola's Tapas Bar in Hoboken for the Lincoln Dinner the last 2 years, interviewing guests and, of course, mingling with other folks who were attending the dinner. Tonight, we're going to be doing the same thing. You're not going to want to miss it. We are even going to have a familiar face at the end of the show. We have speeches, we have exclusive interviews, and you have Peter B. What else do you need? Let's get to the action.
Thank you for coming, guys. Good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Herminio Mendoza. I'm the president of Hispanic Republican of North Jersey. We are here today celebrating Lincoln.
As he said before, I'm Matt, Northeast Deputy Regional Director for Young Americans for Liberty, but lifelong Jersey native, straight out of Morris County, but as he mentioned before, I've been friends with him for a while. So obviously, we're always looking to the younger demographics. We always see them as like, oh, they're just a bunch of liberals or a bunch of, leftists indoctrinated on college campuses. Not all of us are like that, especially not all minorities, including myself. So with us at Young Americans for Liberty, we educate, train, and mobilize conservative and libertarian student activists. So stand with us at Young Americans for Liberty. Help us make liberty win. Help us bring back the principles of limited government and the constitutional principles that this country was founded upon. Let's make liberty win, and let's win some seats in the New Jersey State Assembly and Legislature this year.
All right, now inside the beautiful factory here in beautiful Jersey City, New Jersey, and I'm here with my man, and he's a little more dapper than me, and I was trying to go for best dressed, and that's Mr. Matt Castaneda. Did I say that correctly?
Castaneda, yeah.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
We were practicing, and I still butchered it, if you can believe it. Matt, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I mean, the food was good. The vibes are good, I mean, we're here, of course, for the Hispanic Republicans of North Jersey, which you all remember.
Yes. Well, I happen to be a Hispanic Republican as well. So my parents are Colombian immigrants. Of course, just, classic, pulling by bootstraps, hardworking. Definitely taught me the values of, they told me to really take advantage of the opportunities that we have here in this country that they didn't have back in Colombia. So that I really took that to heart. I really applied that with everything in school and in work, and especially now in politics. I mean, in fact, I feel a moral obligation to get involved in activism, just for the mere fact that, I wouldn't have this opportunity anywhere else. Like, my grandfather used to work for the Colombian equivalent of the IRS, and he only had to get involved in politics because he had to. He had no other choice, otherwise he was going to lose his union-paying job, and was, of course, forced to compel to a campaign for certain candidates. So, the fact that I'm able to do this voluntarily and, support the candidates that I feel is best for my family and for, of course, my state and my community, I always try to take advantage of that with every chance I get.
Well, it's interesting you said that, because a headline from the last presidential election, of course, the 2020 presidential election, we're talking about how many Hispanic Americans actually are flipping over to the Republican Party. But when you dig deeper into those numbers, it really occurred in states like Florida, of course, Miami-Dade County, and so on and so forth. But if you look at the numbers in Arizona and Maricopa County, where it's also a large Hispanic population, they tend to vote for Joe Biden. So, the disparity is still there, but the numbers are shrinking, I think, between Hispanics who used to be Democrats and moving to the Republican Party.
Overall, yes, and it actually gets a bit more nuanced than that, because what you saw in Arizona, it's primarily Mexican Hispanics, and Mexican Hispanics predominantly tend to go towards the Democratic Party. Now, with Florida, I'm glad you mentioned that, because besides New Jersey and New York, Florida also has a very high Colombian American population. And when I found out through researching the other day that 48% of Colombian Americans actually voted for President Trump in 2020. So you're definitely right that you're seeing that shift, especially among Cuban Americans, Colombian Americans, Venezuelan Americans. They understand socialism. They understand what it's like when, you see a lot of the left-wing policies that's trying to be passed today already done in other countries, in Cuba and Venezuela. where you nationalize entire industries, when you're trying to socialize a lot of the resources that you have in those countries, and it ends up in disaster. It ends up with mass corruption in government, and they came to this country, avoiding a repeat of that, and the fact that they see a lot of politicians like AOC and Bernie Sanders trying to make basically a 2.0 of that, they're voting accordingly, which, it only makes sense.
That's very, very interesting. Okay, let's move on to the present here, because we could talk about 2020. Yes. And I know there's many people in your Republican Party who don't want to look past it, but you have to move on, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's talk about 2021, and there is a gubernatorial race here in the state of New Jersey. Of course, the state was won by President Biden by 22 percentage points. Whoever Republican is running, I mean, you're going to have to get a lot more Hispanics than you think to put the Republican nominee over Governor Murphy. I mean, so what is the plan for organizations like the Hispanic Republicans of North Jersey and yourself to try to shift that needle and hopefully for your sake, give some support to the Republican nominee rather?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just really shifting the narrative. I mean, the number one reason that a lot of Hispanics vote Democrat or vote for politicians that would be going against their own self-interest is merely the fact of immigration. Of course, Republicans typically tend to have a harder stance on immigration than Democrats, and a lot of Hispanics, unfortunately, they see just that one issue and they just vote based on the issue. But when you look at, of course, the overwhelming majority of Hispanics are of a Christian faith, a Catholic faith to be precise. That's a conservative value. We're always about family first. I mean, my own family included. I always put my parents and my sister and all my relatives above anyone else. That's very much a conservative value. And also, of course, just working hard. Just working to earn the positions and the pay and every opportunity that you get. That's also a conservative value, and we don't need government to push us for that. So what we really need to do to really rally up to Hispanics is tell them that there's more issues than just immigration. Like, yeah, of course you may disagree with them on one issue, but if you agree with conservatives or Republicans on 9-10 of the issues, when it comes to low taxes, when it comes to the free market, when it comes to family values, then you get a conversation going where they're like, okay, maybe I haven't been voting the right way this time, or I didn't look into all these other issues into account before looking at these candidates. So we really have to do that. We really have to reach out to them through grassroots. So with my organization, Young Americans Slowly, I've been doing that, especially since for here in New Jersey as a lifelong native. So if we do more of that, if we knock doors, if we reach out to more people, to get those person-to-person interactions, and a lot of people are craving that now with the pandemic, I think the Republicans would do a lot more, would be a lot more successful if they really do more to reach out to specific voters through grassroots efforts.
I'm sorry, not to pull the microphone away, but I just one final item there, because I think this is important to mention. Obviously, you mentioned that Republicans are a little harder on immigration than Democrats are. I mean, usually, correct? Yeah. I mean, the last president, President Trump, certainly I thought struck that divide a little bit more by a lot of his comments. Now, of course, people could say that his comments were taken out of context and so on and so forth. Then there's the media, who didn't have a very good relationship with him. But, I mean, you do have, especially to newer immigrants or first-generation Americans born to Hispanic immigrants who see that and see, him being almost a xenophobe to their parents and their family members and so on. So how do you explain to them that that's just not the case, and the Republican Party is different than what is perceived he was saying?
Well, like I mentioned before, it's very much it's going to be the similar approach as to really trying to get more Republican votes from Hispanics in the gubernatorial election. Of course, it has to be a nationwide thing. We got to have these conversations, because unfortunately in social media, a lot of people politically on the left, a lot of people who are Democrats, they're not willing to have those conversations. Like, I even had disagreements with longtime friends. They threatened to block me just for having a mere disagreement. So what we really need to do is just really open ourselves up to more conversations on the more nuanced issues that we don't talk about as much. That is outside of what the media pushes on a daily basis. So if we really talk to them about, of course, family values, of course, taxes, the cost of living here in New Jersey, obviously very high, and a lot of people are moving to Florida or even Pennsylvania, other states where cost of living is cheaper. I mean, it's hard to get more expensive than New Jersey. But at the end of the day, like, we have to have conversations with people. We have to sit them down and just be like, look, I know you disagree with President Trump on X issue or Y issue, usually immigration or his rhetoric style, but have you taken into account all these other issues that affect your life, and how the two parties differentiate? I mean, of course, depending on the candidate, where they really differ on the issues and why they take the different approaches that they do. So if we really have more conversations about this, I mean, it's obviously not a guarantee that Republicans win or do better by any means, but at least you'll be able to have that conversation or that form of discourse with people so they can look at politics more holistically rather than what the news headlines are on a daily basis.
Amen. I really appreciate that answer because, I mean, there is some common ground. I feel like it's either one side or another side. Well, thank you for your time. Your speech was riveting before. I mean, we just showed some highlights on the show here, and best of luck going forward. Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate it.
All right. We'll be back with some more interviews, folks.
When it came down to winning over the predominantly Democrat-ran districts, I was always met with the same answer. We can't win those areas. We can't get into that spot because it's not worth the money. It's not worth the time. We, with literally no money, shifted 30,000. It's never been done before, ever, in the 9th District. So what that tells me is if we're willing to put our feet to the fire and fight where we need to fight, we can actually win. I'm a nobody. I don't look anything like your average politician. I don't act anything like your average politician, but I really genuinely care about my district. Because if you guys know anything about Paterson, New Jersey, if you have the Newsbreak app on your phone, literally every day, someone's dying. Someone's getting shot, someone's getting killed, someone's getting robbed. In my opinion, right now, this governor's race is extremely important. It's literally our final shot. All right? We can't survive another 4 years of Murphy. Biden's been here like not even 35 days. And you see what he's done. He's cut off jobs. He's killed off 70,000 jobs, cutting off the Keystone Pipeline. The $15 minimum wage that was supposedly going to be in a COVID bill, it's not there. The $1.9 trillion COVID bill that he promised people, less than 9% of that's going to the American people. Yet this passed the House. This has nothing to do with the American people. So if you guys can see this in the first 35 days, where do you think we're going to be a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now? 2 years is our final shot. Criminals go in, no bail, they come right back out. Death rate goes up, crime goes up, and we have to deal with that. And what do politicians go out and say? Oh, we support Black Lives Matter, while we're the ones getting killed and they're doing nothing on our behalf. Put our data together, let's put our minds together, let's put our effort together, and number one, let's get rid of Murphy. Let's fix our voter rolls, let's save New Jersey, and let's get the candidates that we care about, the candidates that are true to our values, elected. We do something amazing in New Jersey, the world will follow suit.
It's always good to talk to folks in Hudson County. This year is a real opportunity for us. We've got not only the governorship up, but all 120 legislators. This is an opportunity to make New Jersey over again. And for Jack and for me, that's about two things. Not only fixing our state, it's broken. You know it and I know it. Our taxes are too high, right? Our families can't afford to stay and live here. And our freedoms are being trampled every day. But what drives me nuts about this state is that, and there's one statistic, and it's not that we have the most out-migration of any state in the country, although we do. It's not that we have the highest property tax burden, although we do. What drives me nuts is that of all the kids that go away to college after being educated here in New Jersey, the fewest come back. The fewest come back. What are we doing? What are we doing? We're spending all this money to educate our kids here. To the highest property taxes, it's driving up our property taxes. That's why we've got to fix the school funding for them, what Jack's going to do. And the fewest come back, so they start their lives and careers in other states. It means that we don't grow up with cousins and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpa because they can't afford to retire here and their kids aren't coming back here to start their own businesses.
Jersey needs to heal. We need to heal from coronavirus. Physically, some people have gotten the virus. Others have had other health issues really impact them because they can't go get the treatments they need. Some people need to heal financially. Some people need to heal emotionally from having to say goodbye to loved ones on Zoom calls. We need to heal. But once we heal, we better start fighting because our state is in serious, serious trouble. And so I know some others have spoken already, and so I'll keep this short and I'll try and give you something that you can remember and take home with you and kind of the platform that I'm running on, and I call them the New Jersey Family ABCs because that's what we need to fight for. That's what we need to fight after we heal. And the ABCs are family autonomy, family business, and family core values. And I'll tell you right now that our family autonomy is under attack. This administration doesn't believe in your front door. This administration doesn't believe in my front door, and they believe that parents aren't qualified to educate their children. They don't believe that what my sister and I learned at the kitchen table is acceptable anymore. So now they've put it at the classroom desk, and they've demanded that parents no longer can teach the kids what they want about social issues. They're going to teach them the way they want. And it's gone way beyond education, and we're now indoctrination because this administration doesn't believe in your front door. If we're not careful, we're going to end up with mandated vaccines before our kids go back to school. Whether it's the COVID vaccine or the flu vaccine, this issue already came up 13 months ago. It will come up again because this administration doesn't believe mom and dad are qualified to make solid health decisions for their family. My wife Jennifer and I, we have 4 children. None of them have the full recommended doses of vaccines, but they have more than 0. You know why? Because I'm their father and Jennifer's their mother, and we get to decide what gets injected into their bodies. Just a week and a half ago, the legislation on recreational marijuana, listen, it passed on the ballot. Overwhelmingly, New Jerseyans wanted recreational marijuana. But just like the administration taking away our family autonomy, they made sure that if a 14-year-old gets caught smoking marijuana, the parents can't know about it. And if they find out about it from the police, it's a 3rd-degree felony. They don't believe in your family autonomy, and they're not supporting your business. We all pay our bills somehow in this room. We either own our own business or we work for a small business. We work for some sort of business, and that is under attack. 1/3 of all New Jersey businesses have closed, never to return. Why is it that this administration got to pick winners and losers? Because they don't trust you. They don't trust that people could operate their businesses safely. They've taken it out of our hands, and they've ruled by iron fist and ballpoint pen. And I'm also a pastor. And my church, we started a church in Hoboken. We have another one up in North Bergen. When the lockdown happened, Governor Murphy said our church was non-essential and the doors were to be closed. You know why? Because the marquee over the front door said City Baptist. But if it said City Liquors, it would have been open, okay? And that's just the reality. Nobody knows how to open our church safer than me because I'm the pastor and I care about our people more than the government does.
All right, now here with GOP gubernatorial candidate and New Jersey GOP gubernatorial candidate, not New York. I mean, we still are in Jersey, right, Phil?
Yeah, we're pretty close, but yeah, it's Jersey.
It's Jersey, exactly. And that is, of course, Phil Rizzo. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. So, Phil, you came in here, and one of the first things you said during your speech to the capacity crowd here tonight was almost a personal story. Why did you feel it necessary to explain the story to a group of strangers, basically?
Sure. My story about my arm is one of 2 reasons. The first reason is because I want to take the distraction away. I don't want people wondering what happened to me. I want them listening to what I have to say. But it also ties into the condition that we're in New Jersey. You know, I suffered my accident, and in my story that I tell how I needed to heal. But once I was healed, the fight of my life began. Everything's been a fight, and that's New Jersey's story. We need to heal right now from the oppression from Murphy, coronavirus, the financial, issues we're having. We need to heal from those things, and now we need to fight. And so it's a story to take the distraction away, but also my life is a microcosm of what we need to do to take New Jersey forward. We need to heal, and we need to fight.
Very, very interesting. All right, now let's talk about it. Since you mentioned Governor Murphy, his popularity is still in the high 50s, low 60s. Depends what poll you're looking at. President Biden won the state of New Jersey by 22 percentage points in the November election. I mean, most people would say Murphy's probably going to get the majority of those votes. How do you, as the GOP gubernatorial candidate, if you do get the nomination, plan to cut into that vote?
Well, as you said, depending on how you're looking at the numbers, you getting Murphy's approval rating, the way I look at the numbers with President Trump is, yeah, he might have lost the state, but he lost it on 1.8 million votes, at least, okay? When Phil Murphy won the governor's race, he won it on just under 1.2. So if we can turn out the Trump vote, We start with 1.8 million votes. Now, I understand Trump's not on the ballot, but I'm a Trump supporter. I don't hide that. I don't apologize for it. And I believe that if there's a candidate that forsakes the Trump crowd, they're in deep trouble in the general election.
Interesting. Okay, and that's great. So now you mentioned you're a Trump supporter, and what most other media people, and I'm going to just be quoting them because I don't believe this, Phil, would say is that, oh, Phil Rizzo is a radical right candidate and things like that. And you did make some controversial comments that I'm hoping you can clear for the audience in terms of children wearing masks. You did say it was a form of child abuse. So I was just wondering, if that, of course, was taken out of context, and how you want to respond to the people saying that you're a radical right candidate and children should be wearing masks and so on and so forth.
I think mandating anything is radical. My position is that we should allow people to choose what they want to do. I don't judge people if they show up to our church or to a political event or to the grocery store with a mask or 2 or 3. But I don't judge the person who feels that they're not going to put on a mask, because my position was very early and people criticized it as being radical right. Now there's a whole lot of people in the medical community that agree the mask does not slow the spread of the virus. The virus is getting through the mask, and so it's good for germs and bacteria, but not a virus. And so I believe that the mandating of anything, and we've experienced a lot of mandates in New Jersey under this current administration, I believe that's the abuse, and it's an abuse of power.
Interesting. So you're not going to back away from that comment. You still believe that it is a form, any type of mandating is a form of abuse, whether it's with a child or an adult, correct?
It's an executive order. It's not legislated. It's not the will of the people. It's an iron fist and a ballpoint pen. It's an abuse of power from the tyranny coming out of Trenton.
Well, very, very fascinating answer. So now you mentioned your church, and you did take a leave of absence from your church. But one of the things that struck me, and of course another controversy came to my mind, was when you were talking about property taxes in the state of New Jersey. And of course, property taxes are very high. People are moving down to Florida at an all-time high rate, and so on and so forth. But people look at you and they say, wait a minute, you're not paying any taxes in your Morris County home because you're considered a church. So how could you relate to the average New Jerseyan who is paying the property tax?
Well, as a third-generation real estate developer and somebody who owns a small business, I know plenty about paying taxes. Now, my church is a small church. They don't pay me a very big salary. You start talking about salary in northern New Jersey, they don't pay me a very big salary. And so our church owns my home, and it is tax-free. It's completely by the book. We had attorneys look at it. We had accountants look at it. It is by the book. I'm not doing anything to save money or to make money that's going to land me in trouble. We've had all the professionals look at it. They all gave the green light, and so we were able to accept the benefit according to the tax law of New Jersey.
Absolutely fantastic. So now, a little bit more of a personal question. You tell your wife and your four kids, you're running for governor of the state of New Jersey. Initial reaction from each?
My wife said, "Are you sure?" And my son said, "That would be cool." My daughter said, "Isn't there a beach house that comes with that?" So the kids, they've been great. They've been loving it. It's been a great journey so far. They've been enjoying it, and I have good kids. By God's grace, I have good kids, and trying to keep them, off to the side, letting them watch from the sidelines, and they're cheering on Dad.
Well, we appreciate you coming to deep blue Hudson County here, where, of course, you have your congregation and so on and so forth. But as I mentioned to Josh Sotomayor-Einstein, who's our political analyst every week on the show, if you keep chipping away, it might not be deep blue anymore in the future, correct?
That's right. That's right. We all can move the lines in one way or another. I think a lot of effort that our personal family has put into Hudson County over the last 10 years we've seen lives changed, and so it's been a blessing.
Well, Phil, best of luck going forward. I know it's going to be a crazy time for you, and I'll let you get back to mingling instead of talking to these media folks.
Thank you. You're great. I loved it.
All right, Phil. We'll be back with more interviews.
We were loud and we were proud and we were active, and that's what the GOP needs. That's what people like Hermenio and many of the people here are doing, being loud and proud, conservatives and libertarians. And the county committee members, they're supposed to be the voice of the Republicans in their district and in their county. So we have county committee elections coming up in June. Petitions in order to appear on the ballot are due April 5th. And if you'd like to be involved in leading your local Republicans in a revival and a more activist Republican Party that reaches out, especially in Hudson County, in communities that don't even know that we exist, you can please come. Feel free to talk to me or Hermenio.
All right, now that I changed sides because we have our pain in the butt political analyst every week here on the Pulse of Peter B. Of course, a familiar face, Josh Sotomayor Einstein. My man, how are you?
I'm so glad to hear that the amazing Lincoln dinner that the Hispanic Republicans of North Jersey did made you change sides. Welcome.
Absolutely not make me change sides politically, but that's okay. So talk about the Hispanic Republicans of North Jersey. This event is obviously sponsored by them. When you think Hudson County, you don't really think that there's many Hispanic Republicans besides you. So is it a growing breed? And what type of events are they going to be doing in the future?
Well, great question for once. The truth of the matter is there, if not a majority, a huge plurality of Republicans in Hudson County are Spanish. Or Spanish speaking, or Hispanic, Latino, anything except for Latinx. That's a liberal nonsense term they made up to make Hispanic sound like they're X-Men apparently. But the reality is that they're from Cubans to Nicaraguans to Venezuelans to so many different types of Hispanics that have different origin stories that were fleeing big government, high taxes, corruption, and actually repressive regimes as well that throw people in jail for having a difference of opinion, have a cancel culture down there that actually results in you being in jail, as opposed to our cancel culture here that just gets you canceled. So many of them understand what it's like to live in a place that doesn't have freedom, doesn't have opportunity, and they want that. And that's why they're Republicans. That's why a plurality, if not a majority, of Hudson County Republicans are actually Hispanic. And I'm so thankful to Hermenio Mendoza for organizing this year. It's absolutely amazing to work with him to make this happen, to have all these people here tonight, sitting socially distanced, having a good time, and listening to the really good speakers from the campaign manager for Jack Chitterelli, Eric Arpert, to gubernatorial candidate Pastor Philip Rizzo, to Matt Castaneda from Young Americans for Liberty, to Billy Prempe, who ran for Congress and has his own organization, Revive America. Absolutely amazing. I think not only was the food great, but the speakers were as well.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question that I asked Phil Rizzo and Matt earlier on. Joe Biden won the state of New Jersey by 22 percentage points over President Trump. We do have a gubernatorial race, as you mentioned, this November in the state of New Jersey. Whoever the GOP candidate nominee is, how do you move that needle? And are the Hispanics in the state of New Jersey going to be crucial to moving that needle?
Well, I think Hispanic New Jerseyans are very much an entrepreneurial group of people that work hard, have traditional values, want to keep more of their own money, and want Phil Murphy reaching less in their pocket, want to be able to know when their kid smokes weed if they get caught by the police, not like Phil Murphy and the Democrats in Trenton who said, the police can't notify the parents, otherwise it's a third-degree felony. So the Hispanics of New Jersey have common sense. It's something that people in Trenton and the Democrats don't have. Definitely not something that Biden has. I mean, he can't even give a State of the Union, right? He's not even sure what day it is. But the fact of the matter is that Hispanic Americans, just like regular Republicans or every Republican, black Republicans, white Republicans, Jewish Republicans in the state of New Jersey, understand what New Jersey needs. There's many conservative Democrats out there that are business owners, that work at businesses that were shuttered because of Phil Murphy, that haven't received their unemployment or want their kids to go back to school, are upset that smokers as well as convicts get to cut the line for the vaccine. So you have all these different groups which are disaffected by Governor Phil Murphy, and Republicans we're gonna build on that.
So, and it's interesting you mentioned Phil Murphy, and we know that he's not President Biden now, but Phil Murphy is. His approval rating is basically through the roof. I mean, it's in the high 50s, sometimes lower 60s, depending on what poll you've seen. The last Republican president called him a good man and a great leader for the state of New Jersey. And that was, of course, President Trump when Governor Murphy visited the White House. I mean, these are all factors that most maybe moderate Republicans will see and might slip a vote to Phil Murphy. How do you overcome that?
Folks, I wish I had my microphone because did you see a question there? I'm not sure I did, but you are correct. Joe Biden and Phil Murphy are two different people, I can't remember everything else in the diatribe. But the fact of the matter is that people are upset with the direction of the state of New Jersey. They're upset because they haven't received their unemployment. They're upset because the economy is dying. Well, if you look at states like California, you see some of the same negative growth that we have here. If you look at New York, you have the same negative growth. If you look at Florida, if you look at South Dakota, if you look at Texas, if you look at the states where they put the people first over ideology, all right, before ideology, as opposed to here where, Governor Phil Murphy keeps on saying, oh, it's the science, but he won't show you. He refuses to this day to show the criteria he has for opening up any sector of the economy. Phil Murphy is one and done in 21.
There you go. Josh Sotomayor Einstein, never shy of telling you how he feels. He made me switch sides, but it's because I'm much better dressed than him tonight. And he's extremely jealous of this attire and this beautiful face, haircut and everything, Josh.
I definitely have never been jealous of you.
All right. Make sure you catch him on next week's Pulse. We are almost done. We're going to go outside and do a little bit of an outro. We'll see you there. All right, we have concluded our night here at the factory located at 451 Communipal Avenue in Jersey City. The Lincoln Dinner sponsored by the Hispanic Republicans of North Jersey. I want to thank Matt, I want to thank Phil Rizzo, and to a much, much lesser extent, Josh Sotomayor Einstein, who never answers my questions and says that I just make statements, even though I think they're questions. You let us know if they're questions or statements. But of course, folks, most of you know where I stand on the aisle politically, and I could tell you that events like this can make the world a much better place going forward instead of all the divisiveness that is occurring in Washington and all over the world. Folks, thank you for joining us this week for this web exclusive of The Pulse with Peter B. We have an all-new episode coming up next week. Same channels, same YouTube link, same everything, folks. Join us next week for The Pulse on everything you need to know. I'm Peter Biancamano. Have a great night, everybody.